Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ham Radio Concepts podcast. I am Eric, KJ4YZI, and today, day 5 of August 2022, trying to do 30 podcasts this month, and I'm not on the road mobile doing it this day. So it's kind of late today after work. I figured I'd do it in the office and talk about another subject that somebody had emailed me after hearing my last episodes where I said, if you have any ideas for podcasts, you can send it to me on HamRadioConcepts@gmail.com. And he gave me a bunch of them. Some of them I've already got planned, and some I put up as he sent the email. So thank you. I can't remember your name, honestly, but thank you for that email. You know who I am. You're listening every morning, you said. So in this episode, something that I've talked about before on YouTube, and then, something a little brief to talk about here on the podcast is about making your first contact. That can be a scary moment. I remember the first time I made a contact, and it was, I'll never forget it. I know exactly what I did for my first contact when I first got my license. I got on the local 146.640 repeater, and analog only, and I had a Radio Shack HTX 202. That was back in 2004. Yeah, 2004, 2005, I got my ham license, and I think it was 2004. And so I had a HTX 202 with batteries in it, and the local 640 machine. Actually, believe it or not, I lived about 10 roads to the west of me of where I live now, so it's come full circle. I lived out here, met the wife, moved out for how many years, and now we own a house out here in Vero Lake Estates in the same place that I first made my contact, so that's pretty fun. So my friend Patrick, who has passed away, and it breaks my heart every day, Patrick KI4LUY, I met him on CB radio. And so when he encouraged me to get my ham license, I got it. I waited for the FCC to post it. Then I got all excited, called him up on the phone and said, Pat, I'm ready. So I used him as my first contact because I was scared. So I remember calling out there. At the time, KI4MQJ, listening on 146.640. And then Patrick came back, and that was my first contact, but that wasn't as scary as when I got done with him and somebody else came up and said, hey, good to meet you, Eric. Glad you just made your first contact. I'm, such and such, whoever, Richard and whoever it was, and said, welcome to the hobby, this and that. And then I got scared. I got scared because I didn't know this person. I didn't know if I was doing it right. I didn't know if he was starting to criticize me. I didn't know. I was scared. But it's okay. This is an amateur hobby. That's what they call it, amateur radio. You don't have to sound like a professional. You get through it over time, and you figure out what you want to talk about. There's no real right way to make a contact, but making your first contact is probably the one that is most scary. So let's say you don't have a friend, you got a ham radio license, and maybe you're not on a repeater. Maybe you're going 10 meters or 6 meters or 2 meter simplex, or you got your general right off the bat and you're on 20 meters. What takes place? Well, the first thing I always suggest to do is to listen a lot as you're studying for your license. I think it's always beneficial to get the radio gear and get it first before you get your license. You can never transmit until you have a license, but you can listen all day long. You don't have to have a license to listen. So listening is a very valuable point in talking on ham radio. Now, that doesn't mean you have to listen and talk exactly like the people you hear. All right. If you're new to the hobby, like a few people have emailed me, listening to the podcast, and they're waiting for their license, they're waiting to get the money for radio, maybe this helps you out some, okay? If you've been doing this 60 years, you don't need help doing this, as what I'm talking about, but at least encourage others with maybe some of my information. Maybe turn them on my podcast, give them something to listen to about making their first contact. So you listen, and you'll know that it is life. There are people in the ham radio hobby that just aren't that excited that you're a new person. They don't really care. They're not interested in talking to new people, and they could make you feel very nervous. When I'm on the radio, I put everything aside and stop when I hear a new person or what sounds to be new. And you'll hear somebody that's like Kilo, Juliet, 4, and then Yo-Yo, Zulu, India. Maybe they screwed up, and I could tell, okay, they're new. So I want to be one of their first contacts, and I want to give them a pleasant experience. So you may have heard me do this before. I will stop and take that person, and if I'm calling CQ and just doing a contest, I will stop in the middle of that contest and just talk to that person. So think about that for the people that are listening that are experienced. if you hear somebody new, especially children, or maybe somebody got their wife on and she's nervous, and he says, honey, here, just try this, make a contact, and she doesn't sound too confident, please make sure you give them a good feeling if they're calling. Don't try to say, oh, yeah, it sounds like you're new. Yeah, you'll get over it. Don't worry, you'll get over it. No, don't be like that. So what I would say to make your first contact, first of all, not just how to talk, but how to do it. Well, you got to consider what you're using for a radio and what you're using for an antenna and what band you're operating and what you're licensed for. So let's say you're a technician, you got a handheld, and you're going to find a local repeater for your first contact. Well, one couple pieces of key information is I would listen, make sure that you have the frequency of the repeater set up right, and listen, because sometimes people are long-winded in between, okay? Or they're just sitting there watching the race together, and they'll chime in once in a while back and forth. So listen for a little bit, make sure nobody's using the repeater. And then what you do is just simply throw out your call. Naturally, this is KJ4YZI listening, or this is KJ4YZI monitoring. Okay, and that's going to give somebody the idea that, wow, because they may be driving in a car, hey, there's somebody out there monitoring, and they'll throw the call back. I would not, and I've said this before in previous episodes, I would not get on a repeater and start calling CQ. That's just, it. People have yelled at me on that and said, you can absolutely do that. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. It's not illegal or not banned, but it's not really something that I think you should do. I've heard people get on a reflector 30 Charlie, and this guy gets on there and CQ, 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 calling CQ, 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 CQ. Like, that's on a D-Star reflector where there's thousands of stations hearing that. I don't think you need to do that. I've heard people get on there and say, hey, this is KJ4Ys. Yeah, I look for anybody out there that's got nothing to talk, nothing to do, or someone wants to talk about. You know, it's not really, there's no structured way in the manual that tells you how to make a contact. It's basically, you're letting the information out, letting people know that you're listening and that you're open for a call. A lot of people in UK and England and Great Britain over there that way, I've heard a lot of them come over the international reflectors, and for some reason they have a tendency to say, this is, 2 Echo 0, Mike Sugar Queen, looking for any calls. I don't know if that's just a regional thing. That's like me saying, this is KJ4YZI, standing by and looking for any calls. Well, you could say that, but I just say, just act natural. Just talk like a human being. Hey, this is KJ4YZI. We're monitoring mobile. Whatever. And then someone's going to start talking to you, and they're going to reply back. And the first thing, what do you talk about? Well, there's no real answer to that either. Hey, my name's Eric. I'm driving down I-95 here, and figure I'd turn the radio on, make contact. How are you doing today? It's a beautiful day out, and just talk like a human being. A lot of people think that when you get a ham radio license and now you're licensed to transmit, all of a sudden that you have to get on there and be this is KJ4YZI. We are QRZ or QSL, QSLOM. This is KJ4YZI 7.3, and we are 10.7. Like, no, you don't have to be like that. Just, all right, cool. Well, hey, I'm pulling up to my house. I'm going to get something to eat, man. It's been a great time talking to you. Maybe I'll do it again when I'm on the road tomorrow. So have a good day in 7.3. We'll see you later. KJ4YZI is clear. Very, very simple. Okay. Now, on HF, it's a little bit different. On HF, you're going to call CQ, mostly, because HF can be it's a little bit different. Okay, you could have somebody that is calling CQ, and it's the same thing. Now, if somebody's calling CQ, and you want to make your contact to him, that's going to be your first contact. Your first contact doesn't have to be you calling for somebody. Someone could be calling out there with nobody to talk to, and it could be you that's responding. So if you're on the other end responding, you can simply say, hey, this is KJ4YZI. This is my first contact. I heard you calling CQ. Good afternoon. Name is Eric. Over. And that could be your first contact. I like calling CQ more than I like looking for people calling CQ. And that's why we have that shirt you've seen in the videos. Don't be a scope head. Call CQ. We had those for sale. A bunch of people bought them for the simple fact that people have always told me for years now that the bands are dead and there's nobody out there, and they just sit there and listen on a blank frequency. So I'll get on 28.4, for example. People say, I haven't heard 10 meters in a long time. I'll get on 28.4 mobile. I start calling CQ, and I'll have 4 or 5 people respond to me. And they'll say, oh, I didn't know anybody was on. I didn't know the band was open. We were just sitting here listening. Well, if everybody's listening, nobody's talking. So, anyways, on HF, you know, you may have someone call on CQ. You may have a contest. Now, contests are a little different. If you have somebody on a contest, I wouldn't make that your first contact. Okay? That can be challenging because they don't really want to talk to you. They want to collect your call sign and your location and your signal report, and they want to move on. That can get very discouraging. And a lot of people that have just got into ham radio find that discouraging. They say, I got a license, and this is what I got it for, was for this guy to spit out, you know, 59973. Well, what does Echo Lima 97 mean, you know? And they're very discouraged. It's not. There's a place in ham radio for everybody. There's contesting. There's rag chewing. There's experimental stuff. There's people that are chasing DX. There's people that are just looking for countries they've never worked before, and you know, then there's people that just use it for emergencies. There's people that use it for local communications only because they want to keep radio in their lives. Instead of calling the wife on the way home, they'll call her through a repeater. Hey, honey, I'm on the way home. You know, how's your day? And his wife or her husband is a ham, and that's how they communicate. You know, so there's a place everywhere. I would say to start, to make your first contact on VHF or UHF, look for a repeater. Maybe call out a repeater. Just say this is KJ4YZI listening. Or, you know, whatever your call sign is. And also nets. Now, nets are on VHF and UHF, repeater nets are great places to make your first contact. When you check into a net, okay, if you want to meet some people, when they have nets originally, in the beginning, they will start with, check in, throw your call sign in. They'll take a list of call signs, and then they'll go back around in order, and they'll just talk to each person in a list. Well, when they hear your call sign come up, and they've never seen you before, they might ask you, oh, look, we got a new one here. This is, KJ4YZI. Okay, we'll get to him. And when they get to you and they say, hey, what's your story? Go ahead, it's your turn. And you could just get on there and say, hey, welcome, hello, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me. My name is Eric. I'm KJ4YZI. This is my first contact on ham radio since I got my license. And this is the first repeater I've talked on. I just want to be a part of your net. Thank you very much, and I hope to talk to all you all again. Nothing to report special here. Just wanted to say hi. Back to you. This is KJ4YZI. And when you do that on a net, you're going to have a ton of people that just want to flood you with welcomes and highs, and it'll give you confidence right there instead of trying to find maybe one or two contacts on HF and then not getting much from it. You'll automatically start making friends on that repeater. And it could be D-Star, it could be digital, system fusion, DMR, analog, it could be a number of different types of repeaters on VHF or UHF or 220 or even a 6-meter analog repeater. You never know. I think a repeater is a great place to start to find your first contact and to get comfortable with it. Now, the last place I'll tell you to go if you want to make your first contact is 75 meters. Unfortunately, people are going to yell at me for saying this, but there are many people on 75 meters that just not everybody. Okay, and don't yell at me, but I can tell you right now, I've heard people on 75 meters in Florida. I could tell you when I get on there and I throw it out there that I'm using a new antenna. I wanted to check in with those guys and see how they're doing. The first thing they do is start yelling back. Yeah, well, you might want to take it back to Radio Shack, pal. Anyways, over to you, Bob. What do you got to say about this guy? That has happened. So 75 meters is the last place you want to go for a new contact. Other than that, 17 meters is a great band for people that are just rag chewing. 10 and 6 are a little more, trying to find distance stations or work DX on 10 and 6. 20 meters is great for rag chew. 40 meters is great for rag chew. And, that's what I could say. So where does this podcast go? What does it mean? Well, what I'm trying to say is I don't want you to feel that because you have a ham radio license that you need to talk like someone that you've heard, or that because you've listened to my podcast or watched my YouTube videos that you have to act like me. No, that's not the case. Be your own person. It is just communications. What I can tell you is that if you hear a HF net going or a VHF net going and it's structured, do not jump in the middle. There's, the HF Maritime Mobile Net or the, nets down in the lower parts of 40 meters in the morning. Wait until they call for any additional check-ins. Don't just jump and throw in it. That's when people start getting angry. And also, there are just a lot of people that think that it's scary to get on ham radio, and it's not. I hope that you get confidence. I hope that, you don't listen to what somebody tells you to do and just take ideas from that and do it your own way. With that being said, looking at a 15-minute plus podcast here right now, one thing I want to tell you is if you are listening and haven't got your ham radio license yet, HamRadioPrep.com is a great sponsor of mine. I'm going to say it every day this month. Ham Radio Podcast makes it super easy with their app and their interactive videos and brain games, teaching you a little idea about what you're studying for, not just memorizing out of a book. Okay? So Ham Radio Prep is giving everybody 20% off on any course, Eric Podcast 20. If you use that code, even on the tech, the general, the extra, or the all access pass where you get all of them, you can study easily at your own pace. It never expires. You get 20% off. And, man, you could make it easy to get your ham radio license. And you know what? I think if you go through ham radio prep and you're not licensed yet and you watch the tech videos and stuff in general, you'll understand that this is a amateur hobby. It can be a service. It is a service. But they will even make you feel like in your videos that it's just for a fun thing to talk to other people and utilize ham radio and the learning process that goes with it. Nowhere ever does it say ham radio prep, you must talk like this and do not do it any differently. No, ham radio prep makes it just as fun as listening to a podcast like this. So the code is EricPodcast20. Thank you, Ham Radio Prep, for sponsoring me and to give all my followers a discount for that to make it easy to get a ham radio license. That's about all I could drum up today. That was just, again, me off the top of the head, except I'm not driving. So I think I've gotten so used to having the Bluetooth on and going hands-free and recording podcasts this week. First week in August, I knocked out 5 podcasts. So that's give me a round of applause there. I hope this made some sense. If you're lacking confidence, don't be scared. And if you are a experienced operator for years, and you hear someone that sounds like it's their first contact, do them a favor and give them a warm welcome, and please be patient with them. And just don't make them talk, but give them something. So how did you come about getting your ham license? What interested you? Where do you live? What do you normally do for fun during the day? And talk to them. And they may start right away with, I wanted to get ham radio license for emergencies. Over. Like, okay, so if they say something like that, and you're like, nah, just say, okay, well, let it go a little bit and say, hey, listen, tell them nicely. I would say, okay, so you don't necessarily need to say over on every transmission. You could use that in a weak signal where you're losing somebody and you're trying to get the rest of your message through and they can't tell when you stop talking and when you start talking. But don't be like, hey, listen, this isn't CB, guys. Stop saying over. That's going to discourage them. So please be patient with newcomers because we need more people on ham radio and being nice like that and walking through somebody. They may be the next person on YouTube that has something to offer like I've done over the years and like everybody else does on YouTube. All I want is somebody else on the next great platform whenever it comes out and blows YouTube away. Hopefully someone out there, by the time these little 5-year-olds are 20 years old, now they'll be watching something. That guy will remember his first, conversation, his first contact, and then he might be an instructor for the ARRL. You never know, okay? So be patient, be kind. And 7.3 more videos are on the way. This is KJ4YZI.